So in this survey, I'm working for one of my favorite types of clients, very good understanding of vapor, condensation, knows that rising damp isn't a thing. He wants to sell the property in about a year, so wants advice on how to deal with these damp patches. Have a listen to the survey, and then at the end I'll go back through the key points and what you should do to prepare a property for sale. It can take 6 to 9 months, but if you increase ventilation and dehumidification and fans, you can decrease that time. If you've got mold, then you've got excess vapor. You can either have localized excess vapor, which can be caused by a leak or from penetrating damp from the outside, or a mains water leak, that type of issue. Or you can have general excess vapor, which I think is what is happening here, because if it were a leak, it would be on multiple places. The other thing, if it were penetrating damp, you would have a brown stain, and I'm not seeing that. So it's telling me that it's excess vapor and it's causing mold in the cupboard, and I'll go into details why it's causing it in the cupboard specifically. But you're also getting condensation down here. So what we're seeing here is at the base of the wall is condensation, because that's where it's the coldest zone in the property. It's a bit easier to see it here. It's behind the curtain particularly, and the reason it's behind the curtain, well, it will be in the cold corner of the room, but it's also the curtain. And what happens with curtains is that the vapor can get in behind the curtain, but the heat is being trapped by the curtain. So the curtain is acting like an insulator, stopping the heat from getting to the wall. So the wall is cold, but the humidity is still getting into behind the curtain, and it creates high surface relative humidity. It can be, the data logger can show 75% relative humidity in the center of the room, but if there's a 5-degree difference between the center of the room and the cold wall, you'll have a surface relative humidity of 100%, which will cause condensation. It'll be at the base of the wall because gravity is drawing water down. A cold brick is a poor insulator, a wet brick is a poor insulator, increasing the risk of condensation, and so that's why you get it around there.
Right. So what you're saying is this is condensation.
It's condensation, and the root cause of condensation and mold is excess vapor.
Me breathing out, or
well, there are a lot of things, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to look through all your sources of ventilation. I'm going to look at the outside wall as well to see if there is some potential penetrating damp, because it can be made worse by rainwater on the outside. But the reason why you get high humidity when it's raining is that the ventilation doesn't work nearly as well when it's raining, because the outside humidity is high. When you're blowing air out, you're replacing it with air that's from the outside. So ventilation doesn't always work by itself. You need other sources.
Because you're always told ventilate to keep the condensation problem at bay.
But actually ventilation is, you need it, targeted ventilation, you need it, but it's actually energy inefficient to ventilate. If you'd open all the windows, you'd be either very cold or you'd be spending lots of money on heating.
Is it? No.
It's not practical, but I'll give you lots of tips and tricks on how to do it. And the other thing is, if you bring the internal vapor levels down, as measured in temperature as a dew point, to below the outside temperature, it will feel warmer for the same temperature level, so you can reduce the amount of the thermostat setting, and it will remove the risk of condensation and mold. And a dehumidifier is one of the best ways of doing that.
I've got one. I've used one in this room to try and get rid of.
I read in the notes. But but you need a target. You need to, if you look at on here, it shows you It only shows you what the temperature and humidity is. It doesn't show you what the dew point is.
Yeah.
But the dew point is the critical thing
And
to
that's,
know.
Standing here now, that's beyond my understanding. Do you know what
Well,
I mean?
I'll show you.
Okay.
I'll show you. I've created a website called moldpoint.co.uk, and on that you've got a calculator, and you can calculate it. A very simple way of doing it in your head is to, for every 5% relative humidity, or start again, for every 1 degree drop in temperature increases relative humidity by about 5%. So at the moment it's saying the temperature is 13 and this humidity is 69. So say the wall temperature down there is only 5 degrees centigrade.
Well, in fact, it's 10.
Oh, it's 10.
You
Oh,
can
it's
see
10
10 and 79 down in there.
Well, if we look at the two together, so 10 degrees centigrade. Well, so you multiply 3.4 by 5, which comes to about 18, and then add that to that. So the surface relative humidity over there is going to be about 80% or 79.
79, yeah.
You see how accurate it is? That's a quick way of doing it, but I've created a calculator for a more accurate version, and it calculates the surface relative humidity. But it's not when it's during the day and you've got the heating on and so on. It's what happens at night when there's no heating on, and you probably just had a shower, and you might have washed some clothes. And
I mean, on that point of me creating condensation, I learned in the early days that I can't dry my clothes on the radiators.
Correct. Yeah.
I keep the bathroom door closed all the time, and try and ventilate the bathroom as much as possible after having a shower. Like open the window and leave the extractor fan on.
And door closed.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I in the past, 8 years ago, I wasn't doing that because I didn't understand about living in a house like this. You know what I mean? So I've reformed, and I've corrected my own behaviour to try and do as much as I can to stop.
There are two additional factors. Working from home. During COVID, there was a massive increase in the amount of condensation and mold issues because we are the biggest generators of vapor. We produce 3/4 of a litre per person per day, plus any cooking during the day, teas, coffees, all of that. It all adds up. And then the other one is the energy crisis. People were turning their thermostats down. They were having the heat on for less. They were stopping to heat some rooms, and all of that's fine, so long as you've got a target, and the target is the dew point, and you have to keep the dew point below the outside temperature. I'll show you how to do that, but if you know how to do that, everything else is secondary.
So my concern was in my head, these patches of, let's call them damp, the obvious one being down by the radiator, which you're looking at. There was also, you can't see them now, but there was little bits down here.
It's a cold external wall, that's fine.
So that's not, my worry was there's water coming in through the walls.
No, it will be brown. It will look brown if it were coming through the walls.
Right.
I'll have a good look on the outside.
I mean, the quality of the rendering, the quality of the
brickwork,
is not great.
It's very rarely ever the cause is pointing.
Because in my head, I was thinking, rain falls downwards. How on earth is it coming into the?
Well, you've got a bit of buddleia growing up there.
I know.
Which is a sign of water getting in, but it's going to affect your neighbour upstairs. But these walls, exposed brick is the best form of.
Is this not a good idea?
Oh, that's brilliant. It's the reason why you should have a plinth is because water bounces off.
When it rains.
When it rains.
So that is a good idea.
Well, it's a good idea. What I'm seeing is that you've got subfloor ventilation over there. Oh, there's solid floor here, so that's not relevant either. But ideally you don't have decking, but in this case you can see it's allowing subfloor ventilation, so that's fine. I mean, on the face of it, it's all good. Your vent appears to be working well. You don't have a kitchen extractor fan though.
No, there isn't. But I don't do an awful lot of cooking. I mean, I don't have like vegetables boiling away for 2 hours every night. So I try my best. I close the door when I cook.
You obviously know what you're doing, but it's the target that you need.
I think so.
And that's what we'll solve.
Glycerin, you know what I mean, into the brickwork that way.
Well, that's a possibility. I can't actually see any. So what you get is render cracks, but I can't see any example. Oh, there's one. Yeah.
And that had to be that 8 years ago when I first had problems. I got someone out to repair the rendering because that was what I thought the problem was.
But it's not penetrating the whole way through. It may be causing some localized heat loss. I'm just looking. There looked like there was a crack there, but it's not. It's just disturbance. Oh, but you can get right at the top. Do you see? There's a gap there, so water could get in. But again, it's not penetrating the whole way through if it is getting in, but it can cause the external brick to dampen and therefore lose heat. So this is looking through a thermal imaging camera, and you can see the cold in the corner. It will be even colder in the cupboard and at night, and you've got the subfloor ventilation, which means that it's cold in the subfloor as well. That's why you're getting condensation at the base of the wall. This is showing you where you're getting all the heat loss. Oh, by the way, one thing you should do is you actually get a lot of heat loss from the. Oh, you've got a thing.
Yeah, I put it down there just to see.
It seems to have slipped down a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good idea. But you actually, if I get access to the outside, and might not get it, but you'll see that you've got a nice big plume of hot brick on the other side.
And so the limitation with that wall being in the neighbour's garden is that the new neighbours who moved in 18 months ago have plonked a great big home office there. So the wall's not accessible. My fear was that the rendering on this wall comes up.
Oh, I'll have a look. I'll have a look if I can do.
See though, that's the thing.
So obviously the base of the wall is the coldest. You'll find well with any floor, and this cupboard is obviously cold. A simple solution is to put insulation in. I would use wood fibre, or I'll show you actually, or thermal lining paper. You can paint it, and
the only trouble is I
explain that vapour moves through diffusion. So vapour can be measured in lots of different ways, milligrams per cubic metre. But it can also be measured in terms of temperature as the dew point. I've created something I call the Dew's law, which helps people focus on the amount of vapor. So the dew point over there will be the same as here when all the windows and doors are open and just left still for a long time. And that's because the vapor is being transferred over here. But if the walls are cold, then the surface relative humidity will be considerably higher than in the kitchen. So it can be generated in the kitchen, but it can show itself as condensation and mould on the cold walls. There are a lot of different ways of dealing with it, but until you deal with the root cause, which is the excess vapour, the insufficient targeting of ventilation and dehumidification. I'll have a look at the bathroom extractor fan. Obviously the kitchen doesn't have one, and then drying clothes. Presumably you dry clothes internally.
Well, I've got a washer dryer underneath the stairs.
Then they're not always great, but I'll have a look at that. You see a number of my videos I talk about the right amount of ventilation, and you know that you're ventilating the correct amount. If in the wet room, so bathroom, kitchen, drying clothes, if you have brought the internal vapor levels down to the same as the rest of the house, if you've done that, then additional ventilation is essentially heat loss, because you're blowing air out that you've heated up and you're replacing it with cold air from the outside. And if it's raining outside, you'll find that you're getting very little benefit. So you don't want to over ventilate the wrong areas. You want to use a dehumidifier as your best means of reducing vapor. Yeah, but it's only a small one there. It's I'd say it's a 10 litre version. It's not good enough for drying clothes. You need to have a 20 litre
Oh
one.
yeah, no, I mean I only use, I mean typically I wouldn't use it to dry the...
The other thing to mention, and you obviously love your plants, is that for every cup of water that you put into to watering the plants comes back out as vapor.
Yeah,
it's their way of showing you they love you. I recommend any homeowner get a damp meter like this. So the professional ones cost about £500.
Yeah. I'd like one actually.
Well, these cost £23, and in my opinion, they're better.
Really?
They're better not only because they're cheaper, and therefore it doesn't matter if you lose them or break them, but they actually get into the corners more easily. And these ones, the software it has a horrible beeping sound at actually relatively low level. So it's incorrectly set. It's set to try and sell damp proofing treatment. But it was developed by a company selling damp proofing stuff, well actually for rods. But you have to put it onto the right setting. And what I would do is see where it gets to 100%, mark it, or record it in one way or another, and then every week go back and just see how the wall is drying out, and then you'll know I'm doing the right thing.
I'd really like to do that. What my ultimate aim with this place is I want to get it into a position where the damp wouldn't show up on a home buyer damp report.
Wow. Yeah.
But is that feasible, do you think?
Absolutely, but it'll take you 6 to 9 months if that's...
Oh, that's all right with me, yeah.
You can speed it up, dehumidify and a fan, and also I would flip these curtains up so that they're out of the way.
Yeah. Okay.
So you've got air circulation.
All the time you're thinking, like during the day, just hook them over the bar there is what I could do. You know?
Exactly, and the other top tip is, well, you should be fine if you follow all my recommendations, but the other one is to not sell in winter.
That's the sort of recommendations I like, actually. It's not that I want to sell at any time soon, but I'm just trying. That's my target.
If you get one of these, so those surveyors tend to use the pins, which I don't know why they do, but because it's only surface, it's only really condensation that it's testing. But I would use the radio frequency one just to know whether it's dry enough to put on the market. But if you follow all my tips, you'll be fine.
Okay, cool. That sounds good.
Got condensation on the window.
Yeah, and that's normal. That's normal, you know, in the window.
But if you follow my recommendations, you won't have condensation on the window.
Yeah.
So in the drawer, these drawers don't have mold issues, but in this drawer there is one, and that's because it's cold at the base of the wall, and these trousers are getting mold on them, as you can see. So it's running about 50%. Actually a bit more, it's 10. Should be 15. I'll see if I can improve it. Easy to adjust the timer. You just move this to the right time. So move it to, it should be about 17 minutes. I'll just move it to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's after a quick clean up, and it's, well, getting on for double the speed. And it's now 30 minutes as opposed to 2 minutes for the overrun. So I improved the bathroom extractor fan, so that's working much more efficiently. I definitely recommend increasing the dehumidification with a 20 litre fan, a 20 litre dehumidifier. The kitchen extractor fan doesn't duct out, but if you cook with tops and pots and pans and you're very careful, you can reduce the amount of vapor produced by about 80% from cooking. And again, use a dehumidifier whenever it's humid. Really, really, really important is keep the dew point down, keep it below the outside temperature at all times. The dew point is a measure of the temperature that condensation takes place at. So if the dew point is below the outside temperature, you won't have condensation. In most properties, you'll have walls that are close to the outside temperature just because of the way airflows are moving, insulation, cold water pipes, all of those factors mean that somewhere within your property there's bound to be somewhere that's close to the outside temperature. So if you keep the dew point to below the outside temperature, you will minimize the risk of mold and you'll remove the risk of condensation. Yeah, follow all of my recommendations. I'm going to be putting up a report as well. So thank you very much. Please do comment. This is an important survey. All of my surveys I like to think are important, but I particularly want to help owners avoid the RIC surveyors that don't know what they're talking about, who then recommend supposedly guarantee for damp proofing. And who can blame the damp proofer who wants to make money on the side? That's their business, but it's not rising damp and never will be. You don't get rising damp in London. Have a look at the geological map. Okay, thanks. Do leave a comment. Bye.